Welcome to another Lakehead International Live. Today on the Transition Tuesday, an open Q&A session with our in-house immigration advisor, Jennifer Hay. We'll be chatting about visas, study permits, immigration, answering your questions as our audience members. To chat a bit about the Lakehead International Live series, it's an opportunity for all of our international audience members to connect with Lakehead International or Lakehead University International every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Every Tuesday, we sit down with Jennifer, our immigration advisor, to chat about all sorts of topics revolving around immigration. Tomorrow, we'll be joined by our undergraduate and graduate admissions team. And then on Thursday, we'll have our international student services team doing a transition Thursday. And lastly, we'll end off this week with our faculty Friday with Dr. Craig McKinnon from chemistry. We're very excited to continue on with the Lakehead International Live series. Without further ado, though, I'll introduce my co-host, Jennifer Hay. I'll pass it over to her to introduce herself.
Thanks, Jordan, and thanks, students, for joining me today. My name is Jennifer Hay. I am the International Immigration Advisor here with Lakehead University International. I do work along with the other advisors in the International Student Services Department, so with your other academic advisors. And I am regulated by the Immigration Consultants Regulatory Council of Canada as RISIA, so I am a regulated International Student Immigration Advisor. It is important when you are seeking immigration advice that you are only looking through the CIC website or you are speaking to someone who is licensed to provide this advice. So I'm happy to be with you here today and to answer all the questions you have.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Jen. And obviously, we started this session a few weeks back, and we realized once we had hundreds of guests join how popular this session was going to be. So we decided to give it a full-time spot on a Transition Tuesday. And so we'll be back in the coming weeks, of course, to answer questions as new situations come up, as things evolve within your journey to Lakehead. So we're very excited to dive into that. For those of you who haven't joined before, though, my name is Jordan Ball. I'm the International New and Social Media Officer here on Lakehead University's Thunder Bay campus. What that means is I help oversee some of our live events. I help run our social media channel, help run the Global Ambassador Program, and do other marketing efforts with a small little team here in our office. But without further ado, we'll dive into today's webinar. If you do have any questions for us, or if any of myself or Jennifer recommend that you email us directly, you might hear us request that you send us a direct email so that we can look into your case and help you further. If it is from Jen, or if we encourage you to email Jen, her email is immigration.intl@lakeheadu.ca. If it's a general inquiry about Lakehead University, so for example, about your program, enrollment, residence, all that sort of stuff, we'd be happy to help assist over in international. So if you email welcome@lakeheadu.ca, you'll make sure to connect with us, and we'll be happy to either answer your question or at least get you to the right person here at Lakehead. Speaking of questions, if you have any questions today, we hope you certainly do, and you're joining us on the Zoom platform, you can always use the Q&A function to submit those. If you're over on Facebook and watching our Facebook live stream, you can certainly comment on that video, and we do have our Lakehead expert Sylvia behind the scenes answering questions as well and feeding us the questions from Facebook Live. And last but not least, speaking of social media and Facebook, I always encourage our viewers to stay connected with us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. For those of you joining in China, we're also on Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. And we are posting quite frequently on there with general updates about the university, but also sneak peeks about university life at Lakehead University. So we always encourage students to check that out. I will dive right into it. I'll head over to the Q&A here, and I'll see if we have any open questions. No open questions quite yet, so we'll hang out for just a minute here. We just received one, actually, so I'll pass it over to Jen. Jen, if you wouldn't mind just reiterating the question within your answer, that'd be awesome.
Hi, yeah. So there's a question about family members accompanying you while you study in Canada. So, yes, this is a possibility. Once you receive your letter of acceptance from Lakehead, you can start the study visa application online through the IRC website. So, once you start the application, you will go through a series of questions just determining what you're looking to do in Canada. And in the questionnaire, it will ask you, do you have any family members you would like to include? So if you obviously would like to start with your spouse, you always start with your spouse and then with children, oldest to youngest. And while you study here at Lakehead, your family is eligible. Your spouse would be eligible for an open work permit for the same time of your studies, and your children either study or visitor visas, just depending on their age. Children can attend elementary school at no cost while you study at Lakehead University. And the way it works in Thunder Bay is by zone. So you will pick if you would like to go to public school or Catholic school for the children. And then depending on where you're situated in the city, it will determine what school that you attend. There's lots of information regarding this, so feel free to take my email down from the screen. If you are coming with children, I can help connect you with some settlement services here in the city, also for your spouse, just to help the transition for the whole family. But yes, immigration does like to keep, or IRCC likes to keep family members together, so your family is more than welcome to attend and be here in Canada while you attend Lakehead.
Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying, Jen. The next question we have is probably the hot question of the day. Any ideas when biometrics or VFS will open in India? And I'm sure that question applies to many countries around the world. So, Jen, I know you probably have a general statement, so I'll pass it over to you for that.
Thanks, Jordan. And yes, we actually have no idea when the biometric centers will even open here in Canada. Our Service Canada centers collect biometrics services, but I see you have already typed in VFS, so you're aware that you go through VFS, so you probably can contact their office directly. Unfortunately, there is absolutely no date. IRCC has not provided any further information, but please know that we are watching this carefully and we are sharing the information with you as soon as we have it available. We do still encourage you to submit that application online for your study permit, and then you have that biometric request waiting in your account. That's kind of where you want to be sitting right now while we're waiting for the centers to open.
For sure. And also to clarify, Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, the Canadian government has also reiterated and doubled down the fact that biometrics will not affect a refusal at this point because students aren't able to complete it. Is that correct?
That is correct. And thank you, Jordan, for bringing that to everyone's attention. You will never receive a refusal for your immigration application due to biometrics. Right now, they usually give you a 90-day period where you have to go and give your fingerprints. So if the biometric centers are not open and you're reaching your 90 days, please do not stress. You will just be provided a further extension. So again, the application will not be refused.
And I think something really important to note is, of course, the immigration officers that are reviewing these applications are considerate of everyone's situation, and they understand that each country is handling things differently. And so they're taking that into consideration, of course. And our hopes is to have everything smooth sailing for the fall, and hopefully everyone will have their biometrics. And of course, as Jen mentioned, we're advocating also to explore the routes of whether we can follow up with biometrics once we've allowed students to join us here in Canada. But we'll have to wait till we have a more formal announcement out of their office for that. The next question is, my program starts in the second week of September. What happens if I don't get my study permit before that? Will my fall semester not count towards my postgraduate work permit?
So another good question. I'm going to first share a few links with you guys here. There is IRCC does have a page specific for the updates for COVID right now and how it's affecting students. So it's good to check back with this page, as it does provide lots of information and updates as pertinent to the situation right now. So I will share that first and foremost. For the question, will it affect the postgraduate work permit? You are correct, yes. So you do need to have your study visa approval. Even if you're studying home online, those courses can be counted towards your postgraduate work permit. IRCC does allow you to take up to 50% of your program online, and they have confirmed taking the fall course from your home country is allowed. However, you do have to have the study visa approval for that time to be counted towards your postgraduate work permit. So what happens if your study permit comes in at the end of September or maybe the first week of October is kind of another question that is out in the air right now. And trust me that most advisors like myself are bringing these points to IRCC's attention. And we are hoping for further updates, hopefully within this month, to give direction. But if I can provide any reassurance, I've worked with immigration now for 10 years. And in past situations where I have seen a college strike, for example, where students were out of classes for more than 6 weeks, and IRCC was very understanding and always erred on the side of the student and the benefit for you. So obviously COVID is out of your control, and we are doing our best, and we are hoping that they will continue to support these delays in this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. I did notice I checked our guest list here. We've had a few more people join up on today's webinar, so I want to thank everyone for joining again. I want to encourage all of our viewers who are joining us directly on our Zoom platform. If you do have any questions for Jen about immigration, visas, study permits, or about Lakehead University in general, you can certainly ask those now using the Q&A function, and either one of us would be happy to address it. If you're watching over on our Zoom, on our Facebook live stream, we do have our Lakehead expert Sylvia behind the scenes helping answer questions and also feed in some of those questions from our Facebook live stream. And last but not least, if you're watching this as a recording, you can always comment on the video as well, and we will receive that notification and get back to you in a timely manner. So the next question is coming from a student who is applying from Qatar for their study permit. They would like to know how long it will take for them to issue a study permit if they've already done biometrics as well as a medical. So that's a great question, and I know there is a link for processing time. So I'll let Jen speak to all of that.
And you took the words right from my mouth, Jordan. So
Sorry.
in the chat now, I've shared the link for the processing times. Very happy to hear you have the medical and the biometrics completed, as those are the two, I guess, hurdles right now, as most of the offices are closed. So if you check processing times for Qatar, I would assume if you have those two things done, you likely have enough time still for September to receive your study visa approval.
Awesome. And then we do have another question that's related to applying and admission. So the student said this will be their second time applying to Lakehead University. Are they required to pay another application fee again, or will that fee be waived? So for that student, I encourage you to actually reach out directly to us. So if you reach out to us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca, you just have to let us know what program you're interested in applying to, what region of the world you're joining us from, and we'd be happy to connect you with one of our in-country representatives. So we do have representatives in-country in China, India, Vietnam, Malaysia. We also have someone in Toronto, and we do have recruiters that represent the Caribbean, Africa, Middle East, Europe, Latin America, South America. We have people all over the world from Lakehead University. All we'll ask is that once you connect with us and let us know about your situation, we'd be happy to then connect you with one of our recruitment advisors, and then they can at least assess the situation to see if there are eligibilities there for any application fee waivers. Those are given out on an individual basis, and they're given out directly from our recruitment team. So we have another question. I want to pay my tuition to accompany my study permit application. Can I get a receipt for the early payment of tuition fees? Absolutely. So we have a dedicated international accounts officer. His name is Chris Gallinger. He works in our accounts office, financial services, and he works directly with international students to get these exact sort of situations clarified. So if you need a receipt to prove for proof of payment towards your tuition, he would be happy to provide that. If you have any questions for him directly, you can find his contact information on our website if you go to lakeheadu.ca. There is a faculty and staff tab there, and once you're there, you can also locate the directory, the Lakehead University directory. All you have to search is Chris Gallinger. But also an easy way to get connected with him is sending us an email at welcome@lakeheadu.ca, and then we'd be happy to make that connection for you by copying him on the email reply, and he'll be right back with you to help you with the receipt information.
Well, I think that we've had some great sessions over the last few weeks, because this is the first time I have not had any questions around immigration. But I
Exactly,
would like
yes.
to pose everyone, I'm going to share one more link in the chat there for LU. We do have a page, I know it's shared on the slide here too as well. There's some frequently asked questions around international students and specific around the COVID delays and so forth. So please make sure you're checking with that page, as well as the first link I shared from IRCC, as these are the two pages that get updated as any new announcements happen.
Awesome. And then, so we do have another follow-up, I believe, to the tuition receipt question. It said, I've already paid my term fees, however, still I do not have a receipt, or I did not receive a receipt. So those receipts are not issued automatically. You do have to request them from our accounts office. They're more than happy to process that and provide you with an official receipt to then include as a part of, you mentioned, your study permit application, or if there's any other details that you do need. I know that financials are a significant portion of the study permit application, and proving that you do have the financials to afford joining us here at Lakehead University. So once again, if you do want to get that receipt for paying tuition, you can certainly connect with us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca. That is our general email. And I'll actually type it to the student directly right now. And you can send us an email once again, and we'd be happy to make that connection between yourself and Chris Gellinger, our International Accounts Officer. Jen, I'll pass it over to you. I know that you have a big question there that I haven't had a chance to read yet.
Yes, and I also noticed there was a question over in the chat, just with a lot of questions around your first semester, and some sorry, Zarek, looking at the first question in the chat there. So I would suggest that you connect with the welcome@lakeheadu.ca email as well, just to go through quite a few of your questions, and then they can talk specifically about your file. But yes, going back to the Q&A, I do see your question. Very good question. This comes up all the time in my life of uploading documents to IRCC. There's actually a great way that you can also send more information. So you do have each file must be 4 MB or smaller when you're uploading. You will also notice there's a document underneath the optional documents called client information. So you can add additional 4 MB there of information, but sometimes that's still not enough. So you also can use what's called the IRCC web form. Again, I will share the link in the chat for you. If you go to that web form page, you would drop down the online application, study visa, and you would just simply state that there was not enough room to upload all the documents you wanted to. Please find attached documents, blah, blah, blah. And then you can go and upload 4 files of 4 megabytes each. So hopefully you will have enough room for all your documents there. I always say to include a cover letter explaining all the documents, so it's very easy for them to find what they need, and also to give contact details if they require anything additional, that you're happy to provide it.
So we did receive another question in the chat, Jen. A student who is going to be applying for their study permit this week from India is going to be enrolled in a 2-year program. If they do not receive their study permit by the first semester, will it affect their postgraduate work permit? And then they went on further to clarify, since it's a 6-term program, ideally it shouldn't affect their postgraduate work permit because the study permit will be valid for the rest of the 5 terms. But what is the case now, given this current example?
So actually, you're completely correct with that. So in order to be approved, like I'm assuming you are looking to ensure that you're getting a 3-year open work permit, a 3-year postgraduate work permit when you graduate. So in order to be eligible for a 3-year work permit after graduation, you must complete a program that's 2 years of study. So we're looking at 4 semesters or 16 months of master's study or more to qualify for that, and need to have the study permit approval for those 4 terms. So if you're looking at a 6-term program, even if the study permit was approved closer to the winter term, you would still be fine. You would still be eligible for your postgraduate work permit of 3 years afterwards. And the program that you're studying, you will still be completing less than 50% of the program through online studies. So your eligibility will still be there when you finish the program.
Awesome. And there is a second part of the question that I'd be happy to answer. It is, if I do not get my study permit by September, will I be allowed to defer to winter? So it sounds like you are most likely pursuing a graduate level course, a master's or above. And in that case, typically those deferral requests must be submitted by a deadline. I know that there was a recent deadline of June 28th for several programs at the graduate level. I also know that a few of those programs have extended them by nearly a full month until the end of July. However, I do encourage you to connect directly with our graduate studies office. So if you email gstudent at lakeheadu.ca and let them know the entire situation, request more information about the deferral process and whether there are any applicable dates for your program, and whether a deferral is eligible for that program. There's certainly some graduate programs that offer both fall and winter intake, and other programs that simply do not, and they only offer a fall intake. And so that's something you do need to take into consideration when you're processing whether or not you'll be able to join us this fall. So there's a few more questions. I'll pass it over to Jen once again to answer a few questions in the Q&A there.
So there is one fee about that international application fee, looking at that for the COVID. I think this is more for Jordan, but if you're talking about the IRCC application fee, unfortunately there is no waiver with IRCC. The fee will still be there for you to apply. But it might be about admission. I'm not quite sure.
I think it might be about admission. So I'll reply to the student by typing. I'll just remind them, if anyone is still looking to apply to Lakehead University, they can certainly do so. Some of our applications are still open for our programs. And the student is, of course, asking about that application fee waiver. And so I'll connect them directly to one of our in-country recruitment officers.
Perfect, thank you. But there is a question. We know everyone is anxiously waiting for the visa. I am not a patient person, to be honest with you, and it is hard for me even in this time period, as I am feeling the anxiety of even our students who have graduated sitting there pending, waiting for their biometrics. So I understand with applications or with new applicants and graduates, everybody is kind of waiting, and not to mention the whole world is kind of waiting to see what is happening with COVID and places reopening and what the future is going to look like for all of us. So please understand that we are all in this together, and we definitely feel the same anxiety as you are. And we are sharing as much information as possible, and as soon as anything becomes available to us, we plan to share with these Lakehead Live webinars, as well as through the email listings that we send out to you. I have shared the link for the processing time, but you may have joined a little bit later, so I will join it again in the links. You can check the processing time there, but I have also noticed there is a clause on the page saying that they cannot give accurate information about processing times due to COVID. So unfortunately, we all have to just kind of sit patiently and wait, knowing that you've submitted your application, you've done everything correct, and note that IRCC is looking at this carefully, as it will affect many, many students, graduates, workers, visitors, all applying for Canadian immigration programs.
Awesome. Thank you so much for clarifying, Jen. The next question we have is from a student. Can I defer my application after the July 30th if I don't receive a study permit? That is a question more specific to every individual student based on what program and what level of study you're pursuing. For example, if you are pursuing an undergraduate program, your offer is already eligible for both fall 2020 as well as winter 2021 intake, with a few select programs that are not eligible for that, of course. If you need clarity, you're more than welcome to connect with us at welcome@lakeheadu.ca or connect directly with our international admissions teams. If you are referring to a graduate program, it sounds like that date might come quite closely to some of the newest deadlines on deferrals. So once again, I'll encourage anyone who is potentially pursuing or interested in a deferral, if they need more details, if they need more clarity, certainly connect directly with our graduate studies team. Otherwise, we can't certainly say exactly what you need to do. It's more of a personal decision where you need to weigh all of your options and take everything into consideration to know exactly what pathway and what route is going to be best for you. So once again, I'll pass it over to Jen to answer a few questions. The first one with Victoria, I believe.
Thanks, Jordan. So I'm interested to know what the issue is with the visa payment page. I know the payment is quite sophisticated for the IRCC page, so we usually do never use the online banking, but I'm assuming you're paying from out of country, so using the first option, which is the Visa or credit card. If you've spoke to your bank and they say that they've removed the locks, I'm not quite sure what's happening, but I do know that the name on the card holder has to look specifically how it is on the card, word for word, so if it's capital or not, and no spaces within the numbers. But usually if you try to make the payment and you get the error, it will tell you what is wrong and kind of highlight the area that's wrong. So unfortunately, the only way to pay for the application fee is through online payment. So if it doesn't work, maybe you can speak to your parents or try a different card and see if that helps. And then we have another question that's talking about applying for the SDS program through Pakistan. So the information is all available on the IRCC website. I'm sure you've already gone through this. The link I have shared now just in the chat will give you all the information talking about what's important to note for the SDS stream. And hopefully all the information you find is there. If you do want any further details, you can directly use the web form to clarify anything through IRCC, but it's quite straightforward. And once you start to get into the application, it will show you what documents need to be uploaded. On the uploading page, you will always note there's little question marks beside the documents you have to upload. And if you click on that question mark, it will give you tons of examples or will tell you what you need to include in these fields.
Awesome. And the next question we have, I've answered it by text already, but I think it's a really good one to answer to our general audience is, as admissions for undergraduate and graduate programs, select graduate and undergraduate programs, is still open, may I know the deadline? So simply, because the deadline has passed, the formal deadline for these programs and applications has already passed. Unfortunately, we don't have a new deadline, simply because we will keep that application open until we've filled the seats or until the program coordinators or faculty members choose to close that application. With that being said, of course, that means that then I encourage each of our students who may still be interested in applying to submit that application as soon as possible. We're more than happy to help walk you through the application, assist in any way that we can. And certainly we'd be happy to connect with our in-country representatives as well. So if you're joining from anywhere around the world, we do have a dedicated staff member within our international enrollment team to assist you with that application and answer your questions related to maybe more specific questions from your country. Another question we got is, I'm still not clear about course registration process in computer science courses as well. Whom should I contact? So for students pursuing an undergraduate program in computer science or undergraduate in general, course registration has already opened. And there are fast pass sessions hosted by our enrollment services team. These fast pass sessions are a really great way to easily connect with our enrollment services team, learn more about registration, make sure that your registration is in line with your academic calendar and your course calendar. For students pursuing the graduate level of studies, especially computer science, that still has yet to open. It should be opening in a week or so, roughly. If you have not already connected with your graduate coordinator, I certainly encourage you to do so. They would be happy to answer questions directly from students into their own program. And the registration process is slightly different. You don't actually have to manually pick your courses, but each program has its own unique way. So once again, I'll encourage every person pursuing a graduate level program to connect directly with their respective graduate coordinators. So I'll pass it over to Jen to answer another immigration question.
Thanks, Jordan. So outside of the SDS stream, which is only specific to certain countries and you have to meet a certain criteria, you can apply for the regular stream for a study permit through the IRCC website. Again, I will share the link to everybody in case you're interested to apply for the study permit. In this link, it will show you how to apply, what documents you need, all the other information like bringing family members or if you have a co-op or other things that you need to be mindful of. Directly in there. And also you will see the processing times as one of the first links on that page, so you can check to make sure you give yourself enough time to apply for this work permit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen. So we have another question relating to admissions. I'll remind all of our viewers too that every Wednesday we host a Wednesday weekly. Of course, last Wednesday was Canada Day, so we weren't able to host it. The university was closed. But every Wednesday, and including tomorrow, we'll be live with our undergraduate and graduate admissions officers who would be happy to answer some of these questions in more detail than I could ever, most likely. But I'm still happy to help as much as I can. So this question is, I've submitted my application and sent a mail, but I have yet to receive a response. What can be done to improve that response time? So the first thing I would encourage the student to do is review their application on their MyInfo account. Your MyInfo account is your student information portal that is used every step from application all the way through to graduation, and even as an alumni, and in Jennifer and I's cases, as an employee as well. It is the main portal for Lakehead University. On that portal, there is an applicant tab. Within that applicant tab, whether you're an undergraduate or graduate student, you can review the current status of your application. You also can review any documents that are outstanding on your application. So I know that you did clarify that you've sent mail with your documents already, but you've yet to receive a response. That does encourage me, or tells me that there's a possibility that we have yet to receive that mail, as we like to refer to it as snail mail, especially given the current global pandemic. Mail is taking a bit longer to get to us, and we are not receiving it every day. The university is receiving it on a regular basis, but our admissions teams typically get it once a week after that. And so we might have it might say received if you've shipped it and it's tracked. It might say received by Lakehead University, but our admissions teams have not actually processed them. Nonetheless, though, if the document is outstanding, we also are advising students, if it's possible, if they can have their institution email a copy of any official documents directly to us here at Lakehead. We will be accepting those as official copies. Once again, though, I encourage the student to, if you have a more specific question, to connect with us either tomorrow on our Wednesday weekly, or simply by sending us an email at welcome@lakeheadu.ca. The next question is, will it be possible for me to request a deferral in August if I don't get my study permit, or is it totally dependent on graduate studies? So I think you've answered your own question in a sense. Of course, International is advocating on behalf of our international students that are incoming to have our faculty members in each of our programs to work closely with our applicants to see if there is flexibility in offering more deferrals or extensions, as well as our admissions teams. They've done the same. We really stepped up to that, in my opinion, offering many new opportunities and procedures given the current global pandemic. But I think you answered your own question. Unfortunately, we cannot guarantee that a deferral will be available in August if a deadline has already passed. So if your program has a deferral deadline that's coming up or approaching, you really need to consider and weigh your options with that program to then consider, is it possible for me to start this fall? Will I need to defer to winter beforehand? If there's any outstanding questions within that process, I certainly encourage you to connect with Graduate Studies directly, and they'd be happy to address your questions as well. Pass it over to Jen. I'll take a breather myself, and I'll let her answer a few questions.
Thanks, Jordan. I know that was a good run for you.
Thank you.
So Yusuf, thank you. I'm glad you found the information informative. So yes, if you take the September semester online and for some reason the study permit is not refused, so when you go to apply for your study permit again, you would be able to include, since the tuition has already been paid to Lakehead, you could keep that payment there and you would show that your tuition has been paid. So instead of showing the full bank balance in your sponsor's account, you're going to show the receipt from Lakehead along with the balance of what's in the sponsor's account to show the difference. And it does not hurt to include a cover letter saying, please be advised, in my first application, you would see the fees were there. However, we did make the installment to Lakehead. This should strengthen your application, if anything, to show that you're more serious about studying at Lakehead. But to all attendees today, just to note that if you do have a refusal of your study permit and you are reapplying for that study permit, it is really important to pull those notes. So when you are refused any immigration application, to come to Canada, you will receive what's called as a refusal letter. And on that letter, they will check boxes determining why they have refused your application. And sometimes it is quite generic, like, we do not feel you will leave Canada after your designated stay, which really doesn't mean anything. And how do we prove this to immigration? So if you have a refusal and you are reapplying, you should always write directly to the office or the embassy who has processed your application, which will say right at the bottom of the letter. So it will say Bangalore at GIC or wherever the office is that processed your file. And you can write to them and you can ask them for the detailed notes. You will receive a huge file, probably about 100 pages, kind of hard to decipher through, but if you read through, you will actually see the notes of the officer saying, applicant had $10,000 in account, and after 2 weeks, this money had disappeared. This looks fraudulent on our behalf, and this is why we don't feel that they have enough money. Or we have refused it because the applicant has tons of family in Canada and we are not satisfied. They actually just want to go there to study. So you have to be able to, when you apply, to readjust those points specifically, because you definitely don't want to have multiple refusals under your self and your application or your record, so that when you're reapplying or your family is applying to Canada. And it is always very important to be very truthful, provide all information as applicable to your application. So hopefully that helps to answer all your questions. I know I have another one. So for the links that are posted in the chat, please feel free to send me an email, as I know these links are really good ones to have. I would suggest just clicking on them right now if you're using your laptop to attend, and just even saving them in the web browser for afterwards, and then you can kind of bookmark the page. On our immigration page for the online community of care, all these links are shared with you. So please also feel free to refer to our website. But you will see my email just on the left of this slide here. So if you send me an email, I'm happy to share all these links after the presentation with you.
Awesome. And I just answered another question about a student who questioned who is the best point of contact for the MBA program. So for students who are interested or pursuing, a graduate level program, if you are interested in connecting directly with your faculty advisor, your graduate coordinator, so be it, whatever program you're joining, what I encourage you to do, if you visit lakeheadu.ca, and you're on our main homepage, at the very top you'll see a tab called Faculty and Staff. Once you click that tab, you'll actually be brought to a homepage technically meant more so for myself and Jen and our resources as staff members of the university. But you'll also see there a directory for the university. In there, you can sort by department, and what I encourage you to do is actually sort by your department of which program you are. So for example, that student who is pursuing an MBA, you could then sort the departments for the Faculty of Business Administration. You'll pull up their contact details, and all you have to do is sort through the folks there, and anyone listed as a chair or a graduate coordinator can certainly connect with you. If you notice that there is no one listed under your program, what you should then do is reach out to the administrative team or one of the deans of that program, and they would be happy to address that or help you further. So I'll pass it back to Jen. I know she has a few more in the Q&A.
Yes, and the next two questions are almost related. So if you don't get your visa due to the COVID in September, what are your options? So again, we're encouraging all applicants, if you want to attend this September, you're accepting your offer, you're registering, you're applying for a study permit, almost like business as usual, noting that you will likely be sitting there waiting for your biometric request to be completed. Your options are really up to you. So as you know, you can start classes without your study permit approval. If the study permit is not approved for the fall term, those courses do not count towards your postgraduate work permit, but you can still study. Again, there was some questions about, like, I have 6-semester program, so does that one semester really matter? No. But there are things that you need to be mindful of, such as deferral dates, refund dates, or dates to add or drop classes. So please refer to the academic calendar and take all of these things into consideration. So your options are to decide to still attend without study permit, hoping that it comes in, or to possibly to defer your admission to the next intake. And yes, we know biometrics are not being processed in other countries, again, still here in Canada. I do recommend that you stay in the queue regardless that your application is in for your study permit. You should not withdraw your application from IRCC because we have no idea what they will announce in the weeks to come around biometrics. Again, being mindful that this is affecting many applications and many companies and schools and everything across the globe. So I do still encourage you to stay in the application queue. As for the deferring, I know there's deadlines and each program is different. So please, that is going to be your decision to make, and you can refer to your faculty or to grad studies or to international admissions if need be to determine what those dates or those important facts are.
Jen, I'll quickly interject, and I'll let everyone know who's joining us on our Zoom webinar. So if you visit our chat, actually, I've already posted in there the link to any available supervisors and graduate coordinators. So that will actually list directly the names for all of the supervisors and graduate coordinators to each program offered at the graduate level. Once you're there, it also has a direct link to our faculty and staff directory, which then is where you will access their contact information. Otherwise, I'll pass it back to you, to Jen.
Thanks, Jordan. And this is a really good question. So a one-year program, I'm assuming we have a few one-year master's programs at Lakehead, and they typically are 3 semesters. So if you start your program in the fall, the courses are online, it's the first semester. It's fine if you're studying from home or from Canada if the courses are online. As we enter the winter term, this is where we have to be mindful of things. If courses continue to be online, that would now exceed 50% of your 3-semester program. So more than half your program would be online. Again, as I have stated before, in past situations that have been outside of the student's control, IRCC has always supported the students. So for example, I always go back to the college strike that happened in like 2016 or 17, where students were out of classes for quite a long time. And IRCC did not penalize any of those students. They were all still able to work. They were able to apply for their postgraduate work permit. So they were able to stay in Canada without studying for a long period of time. So as I have seen already with some of the announcements with IRCC, they have always supported the student. Again, this is outside of your control. And we hope to see this if things do progress into the future and institutions do have to continue to deliver courses online. But I also noted in this, if you say you take less courses. So even if you take those courses online, if you have a study permit approval, those are still going to count towards your postgraduate work permit. But you must study at least a program of 8 months, so at least 2 semesters in order to be eligible for a work permit. And if you study for 1 year, so that's 8 months to 12 months, you will only receive a 1-year work permit when you graduate. So we do not recommend shortening that time whatsoever, as if you study for less than 8 months, you would not be eligible at all for a work permit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jen, for clarifying. So we do have another question from a student in the chat. They reminded us that they've emailed our accounts team and requested that receipt. They did clarify that they sent the email to our accounts team just on Monday, so yesterday, and they're waiting for that response. So our accounts team, of course, is working diligently, of course, with all of our students right now to send out receipts very similar to this, but also to do our regular processing as a university, as a major institution with many financials. So I hope to see that they do respond with that receipt in the coming days. Typically, they'll answer within 1 to 2 business days. If there are any high volume of emails, though, you might see a more delayed response, and I do apologize for that. I also would encourage the student, if you have already submitted that payment, there's 2 options here. So you can certainly ask for an official receipt from our accounts teams, but you also, if you visit your applicant tab, there's a financial services tab or a financial something tab. I don't know the exact name off the top of my head, unfortunately. But you can certainly review any payments that you've made towards that tuition. And within that, it will actually show exactly what's been applied to your student account at Lakehead University. So if you've already made that payment, and it will be acknowledged as technically a negative balance at this point, unless your tuition has already been applied, then you will be able to use that as a form of a receipt. But once again, if you do need an official receipt on Lakehead letterhead, you can certainly wait for the response from our accounts team, and I do hope that they get back to you in the near future.
Yes, I definitely can confirm that information, that we use the account statement, your statement of account through your My Info for any study permit extensions after students have applied. So if your payment is already reflected on your student account, you should be able to download the 2020-2021 statement of account, and you can use that to accompany your study visa application. So if the payment is not showing or you're checking on it, yes, definitely inquire with our accounts team.
Awesome, thank you so much. The next question we have is, what is the deadline for deferring an application? So this is a unique question. You technically don't defer an application, you would defer an offer. So if you do have an offer for Lakehead University to one of our programs, you can defer that offer to then a different intake date. In some cases, and we've noted this in many of our graduate programs, if you do intend on deferring to an entire another year, so no longer deferring to winter, you're actually going to defer to fall 2021. That's another year and 2 months out. So 14 months out, we have clarified that you would then be put back into the application or the applicant pool for that program. So you would be reassessed. It wouldn't necessarily be deferring an offer at that point. There are different guidelines for each program though, as I've mentioned before, so I certainly encourage you to connect directly with us, whether it be at welcome@lakeheadu.ca or with one of our admissions teams, whether it's undergraduate or graduate. Also, I'll remind our viewers that we are live every Wednesday for our Wednesday Weekly with undergraduate and graduate admissions, as well as a few folks from international enrollment, including myself, to host sessions where we talk all about application related details, deferrals, all that sort of stuff. We'll cover that every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So hopefully you are able to join tomorrow or at least connect with us offline but by email. So it looks like we've done a pretty good job. We've answered over 25 questions now. That doesn't include the chat even. So I know that we're definitely excited to answer these questions and continue helping our applicants through these times. They're definitely unique to us as well. And our hearts go out to everyone. We, as Jen mentioned, I'm also impatient in the sense where I would love to know every answer immediately, but it is one of those times where we do need to have a bit of patience and waiting to hear for more official announcements and more clarity from the Canadian government to see how the immigration processes will be handled for any delays. But once again, I think it's another time for me to echo that we are certainly encouraging our students. If you are interested in joining us right away this fall, please do start that application process for your immigration or your study permit as soon as possible. It's done online, so even though some of our visa centers are closed, many of them around the world are closed, you can still certainly start that application process online. When it comes to some of the requirements such as biometrics or medical exams that are not able to be fulfilled or completed just now because of closures, we already know, we have clarity from the federal government, the Canadian government, that they are taking that into consideration. Students will not be refused for not submitting those specific details because we do understand that many people are not able to submit it. So we have another question. Will my first year fees be refunded Will my first year fees be refunded if my study permit gets rejected? So if you do join us this fall and you do not have a study permit and you complete the entire fall term, for example, so you start in September and you go through till December, you complete your exams, you receive your final marks from your professors. I have more clarity on that. We do know that because you have earned an official degree, official credit within the university, so you've earned that course credit, you've also completed a fully recognized program or course within our university, you will have a transcript from Lakehead University and fees will not be refunded. There is very special cases where students are rejected, for example, before the withdrawal deadline or the drop date. And I'm not exactly familiar with the date. Maybe Jen, you might know it off the top of your head or a rough timeline. if I'm
It's
not
usually
mistaken.
in the first 10 days of classes is kind of where you're able to kind of add or drop or make changes and without kind of any academic penalty. I would always refer to our refund schedule that's on the Lakehead webpage or to accounts directly. I know there are students who are rejected their visa, say in August before classes even start, and there are some options for them. However, the dates are very specific. So it really would depend on when the study permit was rejected and what you decided to do with that term. So as Jordan had mentioned, if you had already attended the classes, fulfilled everything and received grades, there is no refund to be requested whatsoever. However, if it's within the first few days of classes, and I also believe even within the first few weeks of classes, there's academic things that you can do, but please just refer to the website just for the specific details and those important dates.
For sure. Thank you for clarifying. And also that does include obviously the academic schedule, which will also publish the final dates to add courses, so register for courses. It's typically 2 to 3 weeks into September, so we have a bit of flexibility there. So if you're still waiting for that approval for your study permit to start, and maybe we're a couple days in or a week into classes, there is the opportunity potentially for you to still register and join us for the fall. We certainly encourage you after a certain point to connect directly with us as our international student advisors team to see if we have any recommendations or guidelines with regards to you joining us here, because we certainly don't want to see you join too late where you're going to be too far in your program. And there also are deadlines published there for the final day to withdraw or drop those courses. But like Jen mentioned, referring to that refund schedule is really important to get more clarity on exactly what you can anticipate for a refund if you do meet all of the criteria, of course. So it looks like, again, we've answered all the questions. So maybe I'll chat a bit about our social media as a part of my wrap up, as I do every session. And then if we receive any last couple questions before we wrap up today, we'll certainly go back to them. So like I've said before, I've mentioned earlier at the beginning of the webinar, we are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. We're also on Chinese social medias, Weibo, WeChat, and Youku. But most importantly, or not necessarily most importantly, something I always like to really push is on our Facebook page, we do have a group established already. It's called the Incoming Class of 2020 for Lakehead University. That group has over 400 members already. If I'm not mistaken, we're nearing 450 members actually, of new students that will be joining us in this upcoming year. So we're very excited to see some great conversations happening there. Students are meeting potential classmates or future classmates. They're also meeting potential roommates for when they join us either in Orillia or Thunder Bay. I always like to hear the stories of students that make connections with friends back in their hometown or their home country, and they can start connecting beforehand. So months beforehand, before they join us here in Canada, they have this connection and they're able to have a friendship established before they even arrive. It certainly makes the transition a bit easier. And of course, that ties nicely with our transition programming, such as Transition Tuesday, Transition Thursday, Monday meetup, all hosted by the International Student Services team, who is our current student affairs team for all our international students here on campus. As I've mentioned before, though, also we're on Instagram, so Lakehead International is our handle over there. We post regular updates for announcements out of the university, but also general updates regarding to upcoming deadlines, our recommendations on timelines for submitting applications, all that sort of stuff. Very important information in my opinion, as I help run that channel. I certainly might be biased there. And our YouTube channel, something I like to note always is that we do have 2 dedicated playlists to our international audience members. The first one is simply Lakehead International. It's a playlist where you can learn about Lakehead, hear about Lakehead from our students, so there's testimonials on there, get a really good idea of where you'll be studying. Another one, though, is the Lakehead International Lives playlist. I've genuinely lost count at this point. I think I'm probably in the 70s roughly, so for 70 live webinars in 2020, and more so as of April. I've done 70 of them or so. And a vast majority of those recordings are on our YouTube channel under the Lakehead International Lives playlist. So if you've missed our previous recordings, we've met up with so many faculties and departments and sat down with the faculty members, so chairs within programs, coordinators within programs, field placement officers, all sorts of stuff, but also many departments and services and supports. We've met up with the Career Zone, Student Success Center, Accessibility Services, advisors, and now, of course, we've transitioned to having them host some of those webinars too, to continue the transition as we come closer to the fall term. Last but not least, before we wrap up for today, I want to encourage everyone to take a virtual campus tour. So if you head over to lakeheadu.ca/tours, you can take a virtual tour of either our Aurelia campus or our Thunder Bay campus from the comfort of your own home, which is really important, of course. We know that you wouldn't be able to travel to Thunder Bay or Aurelia to visit us at this time anyways, but it's really important that you get to see some of the facilities that we get to work in every day, but also the general surrounding environment and the nature that you get to interact with. It's really, I have to say so myself, we have beautiful campuses, and I think that once you check them out, you'll be sold too. One important note there is that there are no appointments necessary, so you get to do that at your own pace. You can join up today after our session right now, do it for about 20 minutes, and then if you want to wrap up tomorrow, even a few days out, you can certainly do that. All the power to you. Otherwise, that sort of summarizes my plug for our virtual tours and making sure that you do explore our campuses beforehand. I'm gonna flip back over to the Q&A, double check. It looks like we haven't received any more questions, which is exciting, and also gives Jen, I'm sure you can pat yourself on the back, because we've done quite a few again today, and I'm sure tomorrow during our Wednesday weekly we'll get many more again. And for all of our sessions going forward, I'm sure we'll still receive plenty of questions, which we're always happy to address and answer. So it's come to that time though. 11 o'clock has rolled around. Thank you for joining us, Jen. Thank you for our audience members for joining us. I will wrap it up here, and thank you again. Bye for now.
Bye.